Alright, I'm back for the 6th part of this series, and see, we got quite a few stacked here, but only about 15 minutes, so we'll kind of go through this really quickly. Next one is Ducktales the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp. And this, of course, was based on the very famous Ducktales cartoon that was popular in the 80s and early 90s. This came out, I think, in 1991, I believe. I'm not quite sure what the copyright date is. And I remember watching this, and this was, because I was a very faithful watcher of the DuckTales cartoon on the Disney afternoon when it was popular. And of course, it was a big thing for the DuckTales movie to come out. And, this was kind of now looking back on it was just kind of a long episode. Because it's only, see, if you can't see it, maybe you can focus a little bit. It was only 74 minutes in length. So, and, the average DuckTale episode was 30 minutes. And that's really what it was. It was kind of a bigger budget, better animated version episode of DuckTales. And now, if you want this DVD, if you want a copy of this movie, actually, the only way you can get it is through the Disney Movie Rewards now, or the Disney Movie Club. They have pulled this off the shelf. In the stores, I should say. Next one is the 1995 film of Casper. Now, this is in full screen. I know I'm I've been over backwards over widescreen, but apparently this is only available in full screen. This was a big, again, this is, CGI was just taking over, and they wanted to see what they could do, and one of the projects ended up being Casper the Friendly Ghost. And this is fun to watch. There's a lot of humorous stuff in here, and particularly the ghostly trio, which are his uncles. And had Christina Ricci and Bill Pullman in it. Apparently I'm just banging things all over the place. And like I said, this was at a time where Hollywood was adapting very famous TV shows and cartoons and putting them into live-action movies. Casper was one of them, along with the next movie I'm going to talk about, the Beverly Hillbillies. I remember renting and watching this one quite frequently. I'm sorry, I really enjoyed this. A lot of people gave it crap, but I thought it was very funny. Along with some other cousins of mine, we would say stuff like, "Okay, move out of the way," or something like that. And we would just completely tear this movie to shreds. Another memorable part is Cloris Leachman as Granny, when she's on the rocking chair and they tell her to watch her head, and she hits this huge branch and it goes tumbling over. Next one, Beauty and the Beast. Saw this in the theater when it originally played in 1992. And, at the time, I thought if it was Disney, it was golden. It was the best thing ever. And, of course, this is one of my first, I thought, what better way to start off collecting Blu-rays is you get Beauty and the Beast. And this is the Diamond Edition. And, like I said, Disney does a masterful job at this kind of stuff. I've talked about in the previous episode, the previous thing about what I've got over Christmas vacation. Next movie is actually a TV show. And this is the 1970s Battlestar Galactica. What's interesting, this is the pilot episode of the 70s series, which played in the movie theaters. This is like a cut down version of the pilot, which was originally 3 hours in length. It was reduced down to 2 hours and 5 minutes. And this is in widescreen. And I've not given up. I've never really had a desire to see the new show, but I also have the original series that I enjoy. Even though it is cheesy and some of it's fake, I would still prefer this one over the new one. A lot of people would disagree with me. The next few, we got about 4 of the 80s Spielberg movies left, I think. Yeah, no, a couple more after that, but next one, long forgotten Batteries Not Included. Had Jessica Tandy and Hume Cronin. And of course the story is about these little flying saucers that visit these people in a apartment building that's being taken by these huge media moguls and things like that, and by a billionaire. He wants to build a skyscraper on top of their apartment, and of course these people still live there. They have no other place to go, and so Hume Cronin prays that for some help, and so it comes in the form of these little saucers, little flying saucers that feed on electronic devices. They're made out of junk, really, and they repair themselves, they reproduce themselves, and of course rebuild things. It's a good little fairy tale. Like I said, this was post E.T. style movies, and it definitely was Steven Spielberg's name on it. It was bound to be a successful movie. But I can think I've got one next that was even more successful than Batteries Not Included. The Back to the Future Trilogy. Now this, of course, is the first edition DVD set of this, and the only version they had available at the time was full screen. I still will. My brother got the updated version, and quite frankly, there's not that much difference except a couple of things, which is they have the Back to the Future ride on the new version, on the new set, and of course there's a new documentary about the making of. But other than that, it was, these are fun movies to watch, and just recently watched the AMC marathon of them a little bit. Definitely of parts. Like the last half of part 1 and the entire part 2 movie on AMC, and it was fun to watch. Now we go into the post. This is one of the movies that this next one was one of the movies post Home Alone, and so John Hughes had to be doing Home Alone style comedy again with another movie, and it's Baby's Day Out. This one was not as favored as Home Alone, but this one is still funny. It's got Home Alone style humor, particularly with the bad guys, and how this one takes Home Alone up a notch because it's a baby who's outsmarting these 3 dumb criminals. And we used to laugh ourselves silly at this movie. Not only that, there's so many crotch jokes. That was like kind of the cheap thing about it, is that they kept using an excuse to hit the main guy in the crotch. Now, the last two Spielberg movies that I have of his production company, Amblin Entertainment, are the American Tail movies. You know, American Tail and American Tail 2. Of course, saw these, at a very young age. I saw this, I don't know, I'm thinking like 3 or 4 years old. And just, for some reason, this and The Land Before Time always made me bawl for some reason. Because just the idea that this character was a young boy-like character, but he was a mouse, and he got lost. The second movie, the same thing happens, except he becomes, he becomes a hero in the first one, but this one, he's not lost. He gets separated, but he's not lost. This one, takes place in the Old West, and he's really out to save his family from becoming mouse burgers. That's the big threat. And I only got a couple more here. Next one is All Dogs Go to Heaven. Yes, I do have this in here. This one's kind of an embarrassment too, but I used to drive my parents and my relatives nuts over this movie when it first came out on home video. My grandmother bought it, and I couldn't stop watching this. I was obsessed with this movie for some reason. And to the point where I was quoting this from head to tail. Enough said. And the last one here is Disney's Aladdin. Came out the following year of Beauty and the Beast. Saw it at a drive-in, actually. And, of course, when it came out on tape, we laughed hysterically, particularly at you-know-who, the genie, who was voiced by Robin Williams. And I think pretty soon this will be out on Blu-ray too. They've already got The Lion King coming out. They've got Bambi coming out. They've got a whole boatload full of those Disney titles coming out. Well, those are all my movies I grew up on. Not necessarily, well, I guess they're kind of childhood favorites, I guess you want to call them, because they're movies that I grew up with, and a lot of them I didn't have a chance to own until they came out on DVD, because for some reason it's easier to own the DVDs than it was to own the VHS, but, rental was big back then. Well, from me to you, ta-ta for now.